We're going to get started with this Luigi Mangione story here. First and foremost, there is an update about Luigi Mangione's case, obviously not favorable for Luigi Mangione, and that is that it appears that Pam Bondi is seeking the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. Now, there's a couple of issues here. Obviously, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Luigi Mangione has not had a trial, not yet. I just want to remind everybody about that. As it stands right now, he has not had a trial. So he is still innocent until proven guilty. But Pam Bondi is pushing this right now. Luigi Mangione should face death penalty for cold-blooded assassination of United Healthcare CEO Pam Bondi orders. Don't you guys think it's interesting how it's considered cold-blooded and how, I guess I would say harsh people are being about this particular case when people are killed in the United States every day? Every day. This is a violent country. There are other countries that don't have this issue, but people are killed in the US every day. And you don't see this type of push for the death penalty, right? But this is the difference between an everyday person and someone who is obviously was a part of that elite bubble, someone who made a lot of money. So this, if I were to make a guess, this is a thumbs up and a wink and a nod for the corporate class, for the corporations. This is Pam Bondi telling them, I see you and I'm going to look out for you. So it's protecting the rich, right? So let's get into this because we're going to see what she's trying to do here. It says here that the Trump administration will take the rare step of seeking the death penalty against Luigi Mangione for his alleged cold blood killing of Brian Thompson, pushing for what would be the first Manhattan federal execution in 70 years. Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson, an innocent man and a father of 2 young children, was premeditated, cold-blooded assassination that shocked America. That's coming from U.S. Attorney Pam Bondi. After careful consideration, I have directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in this case as we carry out President Trump's agenda to stop violent crime and make America safe again. So pause. One of the things that you already notice is that she's already condemning him. She's already saying that he is guilty. She says it here, Luigi Mangione's murder of Brian Thompson. So this case has heavily been tainted by the press. And this is something that everyone should have a problem with, whether you think Luigi's innocent or not, whether you agree with what happened or not. Everyone deserves the right to have trial and to stand trial. And it is up to a jury for them to decide whether or not they believe that he is innocent or guilty. The problem with this particular case is that the press has already said that he's guilty. The perp walk says that he's guilty. So the jury, which I don't think has been selected yet, the jury has already been told that he is guilty, not innocent until proven guilty. And that could cloud their judgment. And I told you guys this before. I'm still not 100% convinced that the people that I saw in those photos, which were revealed in mainstream press, is Luigi Mangione. I saw 3 different pictures that look like 3 different people. And I'm not 100% certain that that is him. And I can't honestly say that it is. And so everybody needs to have that in their mind at this point, like this person does deserve to stand trial. So that is what is happening right now. Pam Bondi is trying to get the death penalty for Luigi Mangione. And I think there's going to be a lot more that comes out during this case. I think we're going to see some information that we were not quite aware of. And we're going to need to get into all of that. And I think like it's just really weird to me that they're just automatically saying, oh, that's the person that's guilty, when there were photos with someone without a mask, photos with a mask. Like, again, I don't know that this is that person. But now there's something else that's happening, and I think this should catch everyone's attention. It appears that there is now a ballot measure that is named after Luigi Mangione. In this controversial push, they are trying to make it illegal for health insurance companies to deny treatment. I kid you not. Let's jump into this, ladies and gentlemen. This is big news here. Controversial healthcare ballot initiative named after alleged murderer Luigi Mangione. So we can see it here, and we'll get to the video in just a second here. This is happening in California. A newly proposed ballot initiative, controversially named after alleged murderer, aims to prevent health insurance companies from denying medical care to patients. So here's my take on this. I'll get into it a little bit more when we get to the video. I am all in favor of an initiative that prevents health insurance companies from denying treatment. All in favor. But I feel like this ballot initiative is just a tip of the iceberg. What should be done here? I think the ballot measure should be done to accomplish single payer healthcare in California. And the reason why I say that is because California, in the state house, they did have the votes. A lot of people may not remember this. This isn't the first time. Single payer was brought up in California a couple years ago, and they apparently had all of the votes that they needed for this legislation to pass. But apparently, when it was time for it to be brought to the floor for a vote, there was a no, we can't do that, because big money interests came in and said, don't do it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that they had the votes, just like they had the votes to pass the California reparations bill. So if they already had the votes in the state legislature, instead of doing a ballot measure that's going to prevent health insurance companies from treating patients, why not go all in and have a ballot initiative to establish single payer healthcare in California? That's my take. I say take it a step further. Remember what I told you guys before. Never ask for the minimum. Always over ask, right? Because a lot of times what you ask for, they're going to try to make it less. But this is a ballot initiative, so people would actually vote on this. In fact, the gentleman who filed that ballot measure was on News Nation. I want you to hear what he has to say. There are people, of course, shaking their heads at this. They're not too happy about the fact that it's named after Luigi Mangione, but listen to this.
All right, Paul Eisner joins me now. Paul, tell me, you're naming this after a man who's accused of murder. Why name it after him, regardless of how important this legislation might be?
It basically was designed to get attention to the issue and get publicity for the issue.
Okay. Well, you succeeded there. There have been plenty of videos and examples of doctors talking about insurance companies refusing to cover things. There was one doctor who talked about the fact that the insurance company was refusing to pay for a wheelchair for his patient, who was a double amputee, and demanding that the doctor prove that his patient couldn't walk.
Okay. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, those kinds of stories you hear about a lot?
Yeah.
I have not heard that one, but that's the first time I've heard that one.
Okay, tell me.
So it's not the first time that I've heard that one. And this is another one. You guys know, I've told you this before. I used to work in healthcare many years ago. It was the first job that I got right out of undergrad. And I will tell you this. You would be surprised how difficult it can be for a patient to receive a wheelchair. Wheelchairs are not cheap. And it's not just wheelchairs. You know those little scooters that you see people have sometimes in the grocery store? The little electric scooters that people sit on and they just press the button and it just moves like on its own, like automatic or whatever. Those are really hard to get. I'm trying to tell you guys, like, you have to go through your insurance company. It's not uncommon for insurance to not want to approve it. It's expensive. It goes on and on. So it's not the first time that I've heard that story where health insurance company denied wheelchair or denied an electric scooter, those little walkers sometimes. Like, this is the problem that people run into. And it's not even just about whether or not you need it. It's more so about whether or not the insurance company wants to pay for it. So this is what people run into a lot of times. But again, this is the gentleman who is pushing that ballot measure.
What your bill would do, how this would work.
The bill basically says insurance may not delay, deny, or modify medical procedure or medication, or reduce payment where the treating physician or the delay denial or modification could result in disability, death, amputation, permanent disfigurement, loss, or reduction of any bodily function.
All right, well, how do you, I mean, the health insurance industry says we're not delaying or denying. We're just simply doing due diligence.
There's also a provision that if, first of all, if they're delaying or denying, they have to have it reviewed by a physician. They can't, it's not an insurance person. It's by a physician. Secondly, there's also a remedy that if they act improperly in the event a lawsuit is filed by any insurer who sought to delay, deny, or modify or reduce their payment, etc., they have the burden to prove by clear and convincing evidence that it was unnecessary, not result in disability, amputation, permanent disfigurement, loss, or reduction of bodily function, and they're liable for treble damages and attorney's fees. There's a civil remedy in there.
All right, so back up a second. Who's making these decisions? So your point is that it's not doctors who are second guessing the doctors; it's accountants.
I've heard that people. I've never worked in the insurance industry. I did a short period where I was representing, insured defendants, but that was liability insurance mostly. But and that was not one of my favorite areas of practice. But it basically says that a decision to delay or deny a modification must be made by a physician, and it makes it a felony not to use a physician to delay, deny, or modify.
So I can talk a little bit more about this because when I worked in healthcare, I worked in billing, and I want to explain to you how it works. When you have a diagnosis, every diagnosis has a medical code. So there is a medical, claims professional that is going to give you a diagnosis. And with that diagnosis, there's a code that is attached to it. So when they do your paperwork, they're going to put in code, blah, blah, blah. When that claim is submitted to the insurance company will basically scan the codes and they'll receive a response, sometimes an automatic response that'll tell them whether or not that code is accepted by the insurance company. And I want to give you an example. The code dementia is a tough one. Now, again, when I worked in healthcare at that point in time, there were certain health insurance companies that would give an automatic denial for a dementia code. Crazy when you think about it, right? When you think about all the people that are in like nursing homes and they do have dementia, it's insane that some health insurance companies would deny that. But at that time they did. I don't know how it is now, but at that time, it was a long time ago, there were certain ones that would flat out just automatically reject a dementia diagnosis. What he is saying is that the only way they should be able to deny it is if a physician says it is not needed, which actually in a way makes sense, because if the doctor says this is what you need in order to get better, this is what you need in order to live, this is what you need in order to get rid of this illness, then the insurance company shouldn't be able to deny it, but they do. There are certain codes that certain companies will pay for and they'll cover, and there's certain ones that they don't. So the reporter here, it was clear to me she's not as familiar with this, or maybe it's not something she ever had to worry about. But there are a number of us that have had to worry about that, and we've been stuck with those bills. And we know what it's like when the insurance company doesn't cover. So that's how it works. I wanted to break that down for you so that you really understand. Let's go in a little bit more here.
What are the chances this is actually going to will pass, this legislation you have introduced?
It's something that goes, the way it works in California is you have to gather over 500,000 signatures. I don't know the exact amount, valid signatures. It then goes on the ballot. The voters decide yes or no. It's a proposed section amendment to the Health and Safety Code. I think it needs a simple majority. If it passes, it becomes law in California.
Do you think the chances are good it'll pass? There's a lot of public outrage. We saw that after Luigi Mangione was arrested for the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. A lot of Americans are very, very frustrated.
A lot of Americans are, they're frustrated. They're frustrated at the health insurance companies, not as much at Luigi. Just wanted to add that part.
I have not gathered any poll. I've had emails calling me sick, evil. One person saying that they hope me and my family are killed by a bunch of deranged assassins. That's the extreme. I'll eliminate the profanity in that one.
Wait,
But
who are
most
these
people think
from?
it's a good idea. I just get email. My email address is public, and that's just in the emails that I've been getting.
Are you getting any backlash for naming this after Luigi Mangione?
I'd say about a quarter of them complained about naming it after Luigi Mangione. I had one call on a different issue from somebody from North Carolina earlier today, and an email from someone in Kansas suggesting I contact the Kansas Attorney General to try and get a similar thing in there. I'm getting emails I'd say are probably about 3/4 positive, and most of the negative ones complain about naming it after Luigi Mangione.
All right. Fascinating, but it's obviously an issue people have a lot of strong feelings of. A pretty healthy chunk of healthcare claims are denied by insurance companies, and medical expenses are the number one reason for bankruptcies in this country. So it's an issue. Paul Leisner, thanks for joining us. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it is a really, really big issue. And a lot of people have had to deal with it, right? Now, we don't condone violence on this show, but I think what the media was not expecting was a public response to Luigi Mangione's situation, because a lot of people, regardless if they're on the left or the right, a lot of people have had to deal with this. There are people who have gone into debt, medical debt, because insurance companies wouldn't pay. There are people who have gone bankrupt because a loved one was diagnosed with cancer. Chemotherapy is very expensive. I'm sure there are some of you who know about that. Like, these are things to think about. So there were a number of people who understood where the pain was coming from. Now, I bring this up to say this. This is someone trying to get this issue resolved on the local level, because I feel like we've been asking for universal health care, Medicare for all, for God knows how long, right? It's been since 2016, I think, for a lot of us. And it's very clear that the federal government not only doesn't even want to increase the minimum wage, but they don't even want to give everybody health care, right? So it's very clear. So here is someone who's trying to say, okay, let's try to accomplish this via the state way. Let's try. California would be a perfect state for them to get single payer first, because it's a big ass state. It's a big state. It's a blue state for the most part. There's red pockets, but California, if California did it, I think that would really set the precedent for the rest of the country. This is similar how Canada did it, from what I understand. It was passed by province. It wasn't just one big swoop where they said, okay, everybody in Canada has universal health care. No, it was done by province first, right? And also, of course, going through the states can be difficult. I'm not here to tell you there are no struggles or, issues you may run into with that. But it would make sense to me that you would try to do that in a state like California first, right? But that's not what he's asking for. What he's asking for is this ballot measure here, which basically says that health insurance companies can't deny treatment if the doctor gives you a diagnosis. And what I'm saying is, go all in. If you're going to go big and run a ballot initiative for single payer healthcare. That's my take. But that brings me to this moment, because you see, California passed a number of initiatives in 2024. And again, this is direct democracy, ladies and gentlemen. When we go to the ballot box and we vote for the president of the United States, that's not direct democracy. That's representative democracy. When you vote for your Congress members, that's representative democracy. Ballot measures are direct democracy. You are actually going to the ballot to vote on a question, something that is going to impact your state. Sometimes it's an amendment. Sometimes it's a direct initiative. But to show you some of the things that passed: California Proposition 1, Behavioral Health Services Program and Bond Measure, that passed. Just going through a number of them here. We're not going to go through all the details, but you guys can always look this up. You can Google it to see the details. Another thing that passed in California, the public education facilities bond measure. Here, they're talking about 10 billion in bonds to fund construction and modernization of public education facilities. That passed. Again, direct democracy in the hands of the voters here. The California Right to Marry and Repeal Amendment. This makes it so that it's a repeal of Proposition 8, which defined marriage as a union between a woman and a man, declared that a right to marry is a fundamental right in California. So again, this is why I tell people, when you say you're not going to vote and just stay home, don't stay home, because you do have these questions on the ballot. They passed the Parks, Environment, Energy, and Water Bond Measure. Right. So that's a big one. It's interesting considering what just happened with the wildfires as well. This one, some will fail. Right. So like this one failed. I'm not going to get into the ones that are overly complicated that failed. But another one here, remove involuntary servitude as punishment for crime amendment. That one failed. So you need to know what's happening on the local level. This is what I'm trying to tell people. While we're all focused on the presidents, there's laws being passed in your states that people may not be aware of. Here's a big one. $18 minimum wage initiative did not pass in California. So they were trying to increase the minimum wage again there. And here's another one. Prohibit state limitations on local rent control initiative. Another one that could directly impact you, especially if you live in California. I know there's a number of you that are in California. So I tell people to just look out for these things, but you already know one that's going to be on there coming up soon. And that's the Luigi Mangione initiative. Require certain participants in Medi-Cal RX program to spend 98% of revenues on patient care initiative. Passed. So these are just some of the things. And like we went through all of these last year. There's a section on my channel where you can just go straight to the ballot initiatives section to see that. Here's another one, healthcare related. Managed care organization tax authorization initiative. Passed. Permanently authorizing tax on managed care organizations based on monthly enrollees. And I believe that is almost about it here. Oh, drug and theft crime penalties and treatment mandated felonies initiative. This is another one that passed in California, where they were trying to classify certain drug offenses as treatment mandated felonies. So that's another big one that you can see there. So these are just some examples. And this is why I say to people, pay attention to what's happening locally, what's happening in your state. I do think these things are very important. And please don't stay home. Please don't stay home and just sit on the couch. If you're in California, you already know one of the initiatives that is going to, apparently looks like is going to be on the ballot if he gets enough signatures, which he probably will be able to. And that's the Luigi Mangione initiative. So let's sit back and wait and see what happens here, folks. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.